The moment the lottery official said my name, time stopped. For a second, I didn't hear anything. Not the applause in the room. Not the buzzing of cameras. Not even the woman beside me congratulating me with a soft pat on the back. My ears rang as if the universe had just crushed two worlds together, and I was standing inside the echo. Ma'am. The official leaned closer, smiling broadly. You just won $60 million. My breath left my body in a trembling gasp. 60 million? The number didn't feel real. It hung in the air, almost mocking, almost too vast to belong to someone like me. For years, our life had been defined by coupons clipped at the kitchen table, overdue bills stacked in drawers, sleepless nights filled with worry, and a husband who carried the weight of all of it on his exhausted shoulders. And suddenly, all of that had cracked open. My hands shook violently as he handed me the oversized check for the press photo. The cardboard felt weightless and impossibly heavy at the same time. I forced a stunned smile when the camera flashed. But inside I was unraveling, laughing, crying, terrified, ecstatic. My knees felt weak, like they might give out at any second. I kept thinking of only one thing, my family, my husband, my son. The official congratulated me again, paperwork rustling in his hands. I signed where they pointed, barely seeing the words. My name looked shaky on the page, like it belonged to someone unfamiliar. When they finally released me, I walked out clutching the real check, the actual bank-issued one, so tightly my knuckles turned white. Outside, the air felt sharper, colder, brighter. I inhaled deeply, and the scent of wet pavement and exhaust filled my lungs. A strange laugh bubbled out of me, half disbelieving, half hysterical. I pressed a hand to my chest to steady myself. $60 million. Life had just flipped upside down in the most impossible way. I drove straight to my son's school, my heartbeat pounding so loudly I could barely hear the radio. The check sat on the passenger seat, folded neatly in an envelope, but it might as well have been glowing. Every red light felt like an eternity, my fingers tapping against the steering wheel with impatience. All I wanted, desperately, urgently, was to share this moment with my husband. To see his eyes light up, to watch his shoulders relax after years of stress, to melt into his arms with the relief that our struggles were finally over. When I reached the school, Leo came running toward me, his backpack bouncing, his small sneakers slapping against the ground. His grin softened the chaos in my chest. "Mommy, you're early today." I dropped to my knees, pulling him into a tight, warm hug. His little arms wrapped around my neck, grounding me more than he could ever know. "Baby," I whispered into his hair. "Mommy has the most amazing news." He pulled back, his big brown eyes widening. "Did we get a puppy?" I laughed, the first pure, unbroken laugh I'd had in months. "Even better," he gasped dramatically. "2 puppies?" "Oh, sweetheart," I chuckled. "You have no idea." I didn't tell him yet. I wanted us all together for that moment. I wanted his father there too, because this win wasn't just mine, it was ours. It was everything we'd struggled for, everything we'd dreamed of, everything we'd planned late at night while talking about someday. We got into the car, Leo giggling as he speculated about surprises. A new video game? A trip? Candy? His excitement filled the small space like sunlight. But my mind kept drifting back to the envelope in my coat pocket. $60 million. The number spun in my head, dizzying. My hands gripped the steering wheel tightly as I navigated toward my husband's office tower. I imagined the moment we'd arrive, how he would step out of his office, surprised but happy to see us. I'd pull out the check dramatically, maybe tease him first, maybe laugh through tears as I handed it to him. He'd freeze, stunned, and then wrap us both in the biggest embrace he'd ever given. Maybe he'd cry. Maybe I'd cry. Maybe we all would. The elevator doors opened inside my imagination. My husband standing there in his dress shirt, sleeves rolled up, tired but handsome, eyes softening when he saw us. Leo throwing his arms around him, me whispering, "Honey, everything is going to change." That fantasy filled the entire drive. With every passing street, every stoplight, every turn toward his building, hope grew inside me, wild, bright, and tender. A future bursting at the seams, waiting for us. I didn't know that in just a few minutes that hope would break. I didn't know the world I was racing toward wasn't the one I thought I had. I didn't know that the miracle I wanted to share would become the reason everything shattered. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime, but for me, it sounded like a warning bell echoing down a long, unseen tunnel. My son's small hand was clasped in mine, his fingers warm, trusting, unaware of the war exploding inside my chest. As we stepped into the glossy hallway leading to my husband's office, the building felt strangely different, quieter, colder, as if it already knew something I didn't. The fluorescent lights flickered once above us, casting a brief stutter of shadow across the corridor. My heart thudded painfully. This floor was usually alive with activity, phones ringing, employees greeting each other, printers humming, but now it was hushed, almost abandoned. Only the dull hum of the air conditioning accompanied our footsteps. I quickened my pace, my heels tapping sharply on the marble tiles. Each step echoed, bouncing off the walls, returning to me louder than before. It felt as though the building itself was urging me forward, and yet something deep in my stomach tugged me back with a silent plea, "Don't go, don't look, don't break." But I had already stepped too far to retreat. Excitement, worry, and the leftover tremor of disbelief over the $60 million, swirling around me like a violent storm, pushed me onward. As we approached the frosted glass door of his office, my son tugged gently at my sleeve. "Mommy?" he whispered. I looked down. His brows were slightly furrowed, not in fear but in confusion, the kind children get when they sense something wrong but don't understand it yet. "Yes, baby?" I murmured, smoothing his hair with my free hand. "Why is it so quiet?" I forced a small smile, even though my throat felt tight. Maybe everyone went to lunch. But even as I said it, we both knew that wasn't true. My husband's company was strict. Lunch breaks were staggered, never leaving an entire floor empty. Something was wrong. Very wrong. A faint sound slipped through the silence then, a soft thump, followed by a low, breathy laugh. I froze mid-step. The sound wasn't coming from the hall. It was coming from inside his office. A voice, not his, light, playful, unmistakably female. My lungs forgot how to function. My heart stumbled, tripping over itself. My son looked up at me again, this time with a seriousness far beyond his years. "Mommy, someone's in there." My hand shook as I reached for the doorknob. I didn't know what to expect. Maybe he had a meeting. Maybe I misheard. Maybe, God, please, maybe I was wrong. But mothers have a sense for these things. A deep, instinctive feeling that hits you like a blow to the ribs when something threatens your family. And that feeling now spread through me like an icy wave. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the handle. The noises inside grew clearer. Whispers, shifting fabric, a soft gasp. My vision blurred for a second, the edges of everything tunneling inward. Was this what betrayal felt like? Not a knife, but a slow, sickening unraveling of everything you believed in? My son squeezed my hand again. "Should we go in?" His question stabbed me with a mix of pride and devastation. He trusted me. He believed I could handle whatever was behind that door, but I wasn't sure I could. Still, I straightened my shoulders and swallowed past the lump in my throat. "Stay right beside me," I whispered. He nodded. I finally gripped the doorknob. It was warm, as if someone had touched it moments ago. My heartbeat roared in my ears. The muffled noise inside paused for a moment, like whoever was in there sensed something approaching. With a shaky breath, I exhaled, then slowly, silently pushed the door open, bracing myself for whatever truth waited on the other side. The door eased open just enough for a narrow strip of light to escape, spilling onto my shoes like an accusation. I pushed it further, but slowly, slow enough that the hinges didn't creak, slow enough that whoever was inside wouldn't realize someone was entering. My breath caught in my throat as the room came into view, piece by fragile piece. The office looked different, messier, warmer, almost intimate. The blinds were half drawn, letting in soft slashes of sunlight that cut across the space in uneven lines. Papers were scattered on the floor near the desk, and the leather couch, the one he always said was only for clients, sat crooked, as if someone had pushed against it. And then I heard it again. A sigh, a whisper, a low, breathy laugh. My body locked, every muscle stiffening in dread. I shifted slightly, peering around the door's edge, and for a moment, everything blurred together, the light, the shapes, the movement. It took my brain a second to make sense of it. There were two silhouettes close together. Too close. One was unmistakably my husband, his broad shoulders, the way he tilted his head when speaking softly. The other was a woman, her hair spilling over her shoulders, her hand resting on his arm like it belonged there. My stomach twisted painfully. It felt like stepping into ice water, like my heart had been plunged into something cold and merciless. I couldn't breathe. My son tugged at my hand, and that tiny movement jolted me back into myself. I wasn't alone. He was here. He was seeing this, feeling my trembling, sensing the tension in the air. I gently guided him a step behind me, shielding him even as tears stung the back of my eyes. My husband's voice floated through the room then, low and intimate. I promise she won't find out. She never does. The woman giggled softly. You're terrible. My vision pulsed. The wallpaper seemed to ripple. For a moment, I thought I might collapse right there on the threshold. How long had this been happening? How many times had he walked through our front door, kissed our son, kissed me, using the same hands that now caressed someone else? I swallowed the scream building inside me. Then my son spoke, quiet, confused, too loud in the awful silence. Mom, why is Daddy hugging her? The words sliced through the room like a blade. The silhouettes jerked. Movement erupted, scrambling, stumbling, shock. My husband's head snapped toward the door. And in that instant, I saw his face fully, illuminated by betrayal and fear. Our eyes met. Time stopped. He looked like a man caught in a fire of his own making, completely unprepared to face the flames. His mouth opened slightly, as if searching for a lie quick enough to save him. The woman beside him gasped, clutching a sheet to cover herself. And in that suspended second, I realized something with crushing clarity. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't an accident or an illusion. This was the truth. The truth I had just walked into, dragging my son with me. I stood there trembling, breathless, heart unraveling, and wondered how a moment so quiet could destroy everything so loudly. My husband moved first, stumbling toward me with a look that was a twisted mix of panic and desperation, as if he believed he could still put the shattered pieces back together before they turned to dust. But I stepped back instinctively, my body rejecting his closeness before my mind could even form the thought. I could still hear the woman scrambling behind him, her sharp breaths cutting through the silence like guilty confessions. He lifted his hands slowly, palms facing me, as though approaching a wild animal he feared might lash out. Listen, he began, voice trembling. It's not what it looks like. A bitter, humorless laugh escaped me before I could stop it. Not what it looks like, the oldest lie, the most pathetic shield for those too cowardly to face the truth. My son pressed himself against my side, his small face buried in my arm. His breathing had quickened. He didn't understand everything, but he understood enough to be afraid. I wrapped an arm around him protectively, grounding myself in the rhythm of his heartbeat. Behind my husband, the woman finally stood, her clothes wrinkled, her hair a wild halo of guilt. She didn't try to hide. She didn't even look ashamed. Instead, she watched me with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. Fear, irritation, maybe even superiority, as if I was the intruder, not her. Who is she? I asked quietly, my voice steadier than the hurricane inside me. He blinked rapidly, glancing back at her as though hoping she'd suddenly vanish into the walls. She's just someone from work. Someone from work, I repeated slowly, tasting the betrayal in every syllable. She means nothing. He took another step toward me. This is nothing. But the room told a different story. The messy couch, the scattered papers, the way his shirt hung half-buttoned, the lingering warmth in the air, thick with secrets. Nothing, I whispered. You bring nothing into your office in the middle of the day while your son is at school and your wife is at home planning a celebration for your family? He flinched, a tiny involuntary movement, but enough to confirm everything I already knew. The woman's voice slipped into the space between us. Maybe I should go. But she didn't move. She wanted to watch, to see how the scene played out, how badly the wife would break. My husband shot her a look, frustrated, frantic. "Just give us a minute." "No," I cut in sharply. "She stays. She's part of this." He opened his mouth to protest, but something in my eyes must have warned him. He closed it again. My son shifted, his voice muffled. "Mommy, are you crying?" I realized then that tears had already begun to slide down my cheeks, hot and silent, burning pathways against my skin. I wiped them quickly, trying to be stronger than I felt, trying not to fall apart in front of him. "No, sweetheart," I whispered. "I'm okay." But everyone in that room knew I wasn't. My husband reached for me again. "Please, let me explain." I looked at him, really looked, at the man I trusted, the man I built a life with, the man who had just torn something sacred from me with such casual selfishness. And something hardened inside me, a quiet, resolute strength I hadn't expected to find. "There's nothing left to explain," I said softly. His face fell. The woman stiffened. My son clung tighter. "I came here to share something beautiful," I continued, voice trembling but steadying with every word. "Something that would have changed our future. But now," I inhaled shakily, a long breath that carried pieces of goodbye I wasn't ready to speak aloud. "Now I realize the future I imagined never existed." He stared at me, speechless, pale, unraveling, and for the first time since walking in, I felt a fragile, frightening clarity wash over me. This moment wasn't just the end. It was the beginning of something I hadn't yet dared to define. I don't remember deciding to walk away. I only remember the moment my feet began moving on their own, as if guided by a force stronger than heartbreak. My son's hand was still wrapped tightly around mine, his little legs rushing to keep up as we stepped out of that office, out of that suffocating room full of lies. My husband called after us, his voice rising, cracking, desperate. But every word he threw into the hallway felt small, meaningless, too late. The door closed behind me with a soft click, but it echoed like thunder. The world beyond the office felt different, colder, sharper. The air stung my lungs as though even breathing had become a new foreign act. My son looked up at me with wide, worried eyes, and I forced myself to kneel beside him. My hands were shaking as I cupped his cheeks, brushing strands of hair from his forehead. "Mommy?" he whispered. "Are we going home?" I almost said yes. I almost told him we'd go back. Pretend none of this happened. Return to the life that only looked whole from the outside. But the words stuck in my throat, heavy with truth. "No," I said softly. "Not to that home." His brow furrowed as he tried to understand, and I hugged him tightly, burying my face in his shoulder for a moment I desperately needed. He didn't protest. Somehow he sensed this was bigger than both of us. As we walked toward the elevator, my phone buzzed in my pocket, once, twice, over and over. I knew without looking that every notification was from him. Calls, messages, pleas, explanations. He was probably inventing faster than he could type them. But I didn't check. I couldn't, not now. The elevator doors opened, and as we stepped inside, I caught my reflection in the mirrored wall. I almost didn't recognize the woman staring back. Her eyes were rimmed with red, her shoulders trembling, her heart heavy, but behind all that, buried deep, was the faintest glimmer of resolve, a spark waiting to grow. When we reached the lobby, sunlight streamed through the tall glass windows, warming my face. The contrast between the cold office upstairs and the warmth outside felt symbolic, like stepping out of a storm into the first breath of morning. My son tugged gently at my hand. "Mom," he said, voice small but certain, "I'm with you." I blinked back a fresh rush of tears. "I know, baby." In that moment, clarity settled over me. I had come here ready to celebrate a miracle, a $60 million miracle that I believed would change our lives for the better. I thought the money would